Live
I
now.
can. Oh, we are live.
Okay, we are live. Good. So, welcome to another edition of Green Late Night Talks organized by FIG's. Okay, now we're live. So, welcome to another edition of Green Late Night Talks organized by FIG's Future of Europe Working Group. And this one is going to be about the Czech legislative elections, which took place this weekend on Friday and Saturday. The interesting thing is that they take place during the course of 2 days, which is, I think, quite unique, not only in Europe, but in the world. I'm Greg from the Future of Europe Working Group and from Hungary, and we have three guests with us tonight. Would you please introduce yourself, starting with Anna?
Hello, my name is Anna Gimplova, and I'm a co-spokesperson of the Czech Young Greens and also international officer. And in these elections, I was a candidate of the Green Party.
Thank you. Wojta.
Hello, I'm Vojta Weisbauer from Czech Republic, and I'm a member of the board of Czech Young Greens, and also I'm the member of working group Future of Europe of 5G, and I was also candidate of the Greens in this election.
Thank you. And finally, Susanna.
Hi everyone, my name is Susanna. I'm Executive Committee member of the Federation of Young European Greens, FIG. I'm also a member of Czech Young Greens, and since this Monday, I'm a member of the Czech Green Party.
Okay, just in time. So, as you know, we're going to talk about the Czech legislative elections. The Czech Republic is in the middle of Europe. It has Prague as its capital and a population of 10 million people. Its election system is a proportional representation based on regional lists, and they have a 5% threshold for getting into the parliament. And when it comes to the Green Party, it has quite a history to go back to. They run on the 1990 elections in Czechoslovakia, and they were in parliament 2 times, once in 1992, and then in 2006, in which time they actually went into government. So, could you please tell a bit about the Green Party in the Czech Republic? What are their main stances? What are their main ideas, and what was the campaign about? Anna?
Okay, the Czech Green Party has like a range of topics. Like especially in this campaign, we had a lot of topics we talked about. We had like three main topics in this campaign. Which was education, of course, environment or protection of the environment and climate change, and also social housing and affordable housing. So these were the main topics we used in the campaign, but we have a really long and really good program in general. So we focus on everything basically, but these three were the main topics we wanted to we were like talking about in the campaign, and yeah, I think that's it.
Okay, and Wojt, I'm turning to you this time. The leader of the party were in the news right before the elections. Can you enlighten us about what was that about? I think that he was in quite a few like popular magazines.
Yes, because he is, they think, a guy from popular TV show, and they wrote an article about him being gay, and he day before election he did public coming out because of this, and also because the homophobic and anti-Islamic parties, they were writing articles about it that he don't want to say. He came out.
Okay, thank you. Now, I would like to turn to Susanna this time, and because she asked specifically to talk about this. So basically, what was the campaign, not from a Green perspective, but from a Czech perspective, based on what were the main topics debated, who were the candidates, and what was their message to the electorate, or what was it based around, which were the main talking points?
You mean now generally in the general campaign or the Green Party campaign?
No, generally.
Okay. Well, when we were discussing previously before, you asked me actually what made the winners win, and I really had to kind of think about it a bit, because obviously the main party who won this election, which is ANO, which sees itself as a movement, and it's a party of a billionaire and an oligarch who owns media and who owns one of the major agricultural businesses in the country, and he was Minister of Finance in the previous government. And so I really had to think back, like what were actually their topics, and I found it very hard to kind of remember what was actually their message, and that pretty much I think shows also that there was not that much of content in the end, and yet still they could win. And I think that's a strategy which they have started implementing already in the elections in 2013, where their main campaign motto was, we will lead the country as a company. And they really adopted this kind of managerial approach towards this kind of post-ideological managerial problem-solving approach. So there is no ideology, there are only problems which need to be managed, and they are the managers who will manage the problems. So in this sense, I now tell what were the different topics. Obviously, for example, for the winning party. Obviously, for the other winners, such as the SPD, which is the party of direct democracy, which are kind of the populist far-right party. For them, the main they could really capitalize on certain fears or anxieties in the society. Particularly, message was strongly Islamophobic and anti-European. So those were kind of the two topics for them. Then again, the Pirate Party, for example, which scored very well in these elections, could probably attract winners because they could attract voters because they could convince them with some results which they could make being in the local governments, mainly in the Prague City Hall. They focus a lot on transparency, which is a topic which they are quite good at, and they could kind of present themselves as this fresh new face. So I think the topic was kind of for each party a bit different, and I would say maybe migration was not such a big topic as one would have expected a few years, like 2 years back, but still it was like we could feel that it is something which is dragging the debate in certain directions, and it's also something which the Social Democrats tried to capitalize on, but basically unsuccessfully.
Okay, thank you. And now back to Wojta and to Anna about the Greens. Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was just like, because I think like actually the migration was a big topic, or as I see it, or at least I think it was bigger than Susanna probably thinks that because I think this is really good like description of the situation, what was happening here. I read an article like a couple of weeks before the elections in newspapers where that journalist basically said that these elections will be decided by this 13th non-existent refugee, because Czech Republic before accepted just 12 asylum seekers. So and this article was about it, and I think it's kind of true because okay, there is this really successful party SPD, this populist far-right party, which had or still has this as the biggest topic of theirs, but also the other parties, it wasn't their biggest topic, of course, but they kind of they had it in the campaign. You could see it, you know, maybe not as directly as SPD, as that far right party, but still, for example, in a super debate, which was the day before the elections, the leader of the populist party ANO, the billionaire Andrej Babiš, in the last minutes, the leaders of the parties had kind of like 30 seconds to to send a message, the last message to the voters, and he was saying something, and then in the end he said, "And we will stop the illegal immigration." So you could basically see it everywhere. So I think it was a big topic.
Okay, Vojta, do you have any additions to that?
I think the other parties were trying to put topics, for example, about the wages, and the right-wing parties, they were claiming that our price of labor is too high, so the employers, we should lower the amount of what they are paying for the employees, which could lead to a really bad situation on the social welfare. But I think it wasn't the main topic in the elections at all. And the funny thing, the Social Democrats, which were the strongest governmental party before these elections, they had demonstrations in Prague for hiring the wages few weeks or days before the election. So it can be seen as a funny thing that the strongest party, who were the leading party in government, is demonstrating on the streets for hiring the wages. And it didn't work well for them.
Yeah, I mean, that is quite strange that it's usually done by someone in opposition. Yeah, so turning on to the campaign of the Greens, you already talked about the messages, but what were the methods that you used, and which were your main targets? Like, did you campaign in rural areas? Did you mainly target the cities? Where are Greens traditionally strong in the Czech Republic? Anna or Vojta?
Our campaign at the beginning, I would say that we had huge internal problems with our campaign. We had to change the campaign manager for 3 times. So the first one was not organized well and done almost nothing. So we find someone else, and 2 months and their company also didn't work well, and they couldn't follow the deadlines of the campaign. And then 2 months before the elections, they quit. So on the last moment, we found someone who could finish the work, but we couldn't do nothing more. And the work which has been done by this awesome woman, Itka Nesestova, was everything what she could do with this really bad situation of the campaign. And well, sorry, I forgot the question because of this.
Then maybe Anna can continue. The other part of the question was that who were you focusing on? Were you focusing on young people, and where were you strong? Do you focus mainly on cities or rural areas, mainly on Prague or other bigger cities around the Czech Republic? Like, what are the targets of Greens?
Okay. Like, first of all, I would say like the most members of the Czech Green Party are in the big cities. So basically, the campaign on the streets was done by mostly in the big cities, because in the regions we don't have that many members or people who would be willing or who would have time to actually campaign. So the campaign was really different, but it's really because of how many members do we have, I don't know, in a small town in the east of Czech Republic, and how many members we have in Prague. Because, for example, I live in Prague, but I ran for the office in my hometown in that region, and it was really like difficult to find the people who would actually do the job. So in the streets, we were really strong in the big cities, but not in the rural areas. On the other hand, I think a huge part of the campaign, which was incredible, I think that we actually made it in the end, because as Vojta said, we had really, really big problems in the office, was that we have 2 caravans, and we basically went to each city, or at least town, bigger town in Czech Republic, and there was like this. There were 2 caravans, and the people from the big city sometimes went to smaller towns or cities to help with the campaign there. So we basically went all over the Czech Republic with those caravans, which I think, I don't think any other party actually did, but I'm not really sure about that. But that was really successful, I think, and. Yeah, and who do we focus on? We actually found out that our typical voter is a female over 30. So basically the topics or the communication or the style of the communication was really based on that, that we are focusing on basically 30 plus educated, better educated women, usually people with or young people with families or children and etc.
Okay, thank you. And Ziska, you reside right now in the Netherlands, so I would ask you, what can a person who's supporting the Green Party in the Czech Republic, or basically anywhere living abroad, can do for campaign? How can you help? What can you do as a foreigner living in another country to support your party?
Yeah, I guess the first thing which you can do as a foreigner living in another country is to make sure that you can vote, which yeah, sounds easier than it's done. We cannot vote, for example, by correspondence, by letter. You need to organize some sort of a voter's permit, which might take a while, and you need to organize it well in advance. So I think we might be actually still potentially losing voters who are not just by the mere fact that people do not participate, because there are certain hurdles to participate from abroad. And I think in that sense, it's also important to think who are the people who have the possibilities to travel. Those might be mainly people who are on one hand privileged, but also maybe also people who are to some extent educated. And the first thing which you can do if you want to support any kind of party from abroad is to make sure you can vote. And yeah. The second thing, I mean, as I said, I joined the party already only this Monday, and I can maybe say a bit later why I did so. But obviously, I was trying to give a lot of support to the Czech Young Greens, and also from my position within FIG, we had a support statement, and we were kind of in touch with them and trying to see what they want to do and how we can support them in what they want to be doing. And then I was mainly following the campaign on social media. I think I may have tried to do a bit of campaigning within my environment, but that would again focus mainly on social media and maybe talking to people from my family. But yeah, that might be also a bit difficult in my personal case. Just maybe to add, I don't know if we're now moving to the part where we're kind of analyzing what the result was. Maybe if that comes later, I'll add a few points on what Vojta and Anna said before on what were the main problems. I would maybe have 1 or 2 points to add, but I can do that later when we move to the analysis of the results.
Yeah, we're going there right now. So yeah, just so you see the structure, I thought that we start with the campaigns, like what were the main topics that they were debated. And then if you agreed on them, we would go now to the results and then seeing why it ended up like that. Can I see your support? Okay. So basically what we can read from the results is that the parties which were dominant before, for example, the Social Democratic Party, which was in government with the Christian Democratic Union, ended up with only 7%, and the Christian Democrats ended up with only 5.8, so basically barely trespassing the threshold. And also the Civic Democratic Union probably did one of its worst since it's in parliament. So basically, protest parties, as you said, this populist guys, ANO 2011, Babish's party, and this really Islamophobic and xenophobic party, Freedom and Direct Democracy, fared really well, as well as the Czech Pirate Party. So the traditional parties were really back and lacking behind, whereas protest parties and new ones who are basing their campaign on more radical ideas came to the forefront. So why could that be? I would turn first again to Anna and Vojta, because you were the ones on spot. So what could have caused the outcome?
Anna can start.
Yeah, I think like everyone now is asking this question, and we'll like as Czech side will come up with another answers to this question. But now it seems like, which it's in this Czech Republic is no different from like what's happening all over Europe or Western world. Like the people are tired of politics, you know, and it's not that they would be like tired of democracy at all, but more like the established traditional parties, because what I see is like the core value of like liberal democracy, that the people are actually good, but the politicians don't usually behave good. So the people are really tired of that, and so they vote for these. But before, like there were those like for a few years they were in Czech history, political history in the last 25 years, there were always some new parties which gained a lot in one elections, and then they got kind of lost or they disappeared. So we will know if we will see if this happens in this case as well. But what I want to say is also the communication and the strategy, communication strategy and the campaigns, because all of those anti-establishment parties which gained a lot, and they had, for example, the Pirates, they had really cool campaign, you know, and they used strong slogans, and they were really cool, you know, and they have this cool party leader. So basically a lot of young people and first voters voted for them. Then ANO has a really strong leader as well. Actually, I don't know if we were going to go to the not really the campaigns, right? So I will just say it now. For example, why Andrej Babiš is so successful is that he has this really good story. You know, I'm a really successful businessman, and I just got tired of the politics in Czech Republic, and I will just go to politics and I will fix it, because this can't like be like this anymore. So this is the really nice story which he tells, and the people listen to him because they feel basically the same way. It doesn't really matter if he seriously thinks that or not. Of course, he's in the politics because of the business. He gets 4 years ago he had a fortune of 40 billion. Now he has 88. So you can actually see that he's there just for doing a business. And also, which is a really important part, he owns a really influential media. So the media before the elections were they were always trying to find this really some hard stuff on other parties or other leaders or other politicians, not really him. So I think this is it. Like people really who are really tired of politics. They are also afraid. That's why the far right party gained a lot as well. They are afraid of changing our culture about Islam. They are afraid of Islam and etc. and terrorist attacks. And then the influence in media and also the campaigns and the good communication strategy these parties use. That's it from my side, I think.
Okay, I would follow up with a question to Vojta then, which is that Anna mentioned that most of the campaign was based on immigration and fear of immigration. But does it actually meet the realities in the Czech Republic? Do you actually have people like hosting refugees or people coming into the country? Is that a realistic fear that people have? And do you think that if that is a realistic fear, it could have contributed to the success of people like Babiš or this Japanese leader of this xenophobic party.
The fear is not based on reality because we have only about 12 migrants in Czech Republic, or we accepted only 12 migrants. But those people are afraid, and the media during 2015 and 2016, they were following the migration crisis all the time, and they were creating the fear in the society, and also the Social Democrats chairman also contributed to the fear that he was presenting himself with the rifle and that he will protect our nation. So the fear is a lot in the society, even though it doesn't have realistic basis. And now the people vote because to the SPD and the Japanese Tomeo Okamura because of this. He had all over the country big boards with no to Islam, no to terrorism, and no to EU. And people hear this message and vote for him. And I think there is connection between anti-EU thoughts and also anti-Islam and migrants, and that the Brussels dictate us what we have to do, and the people can come up with really crazy stories that the elections they have brought in, and that they won more votes, but they weren't counted, and I'm afraid those people live a little bit in parallel universe, that the true is not what we see as a true, but their reality is somewhere else than ours.
Okay, Zuzka, the media was reporting on Babiš as being the Czech Trump. Do you think that's an accurate description, and if yes, why?
Yeah, I would just, if I can, I would just add on a bit on what Vojta just said, and on on the numbers of migrants in the country. I just think it's important to have the whole picture. So 12 is indeed the number which we accepted through the quota. At the same time, it is true that we do have on average between, let's say, 800 and 1,500 asylum applications per year. Of course, none of them are successful, but it's more than this 12 people who we have accepted through the quota. And in total, there are 400,000 migrants in Czech Republic, mainly from Slovakia and Poland and the neighboring countries. But still, for a country of 10 million, that's of course not that's nothing, but still I think it's important just to kind of not stick to this 12, because then people feel like, oh, but actually I encounter more, and it maybe in a city like Prague you indeed may encounter more people with a migrational background. Yeah, just to kind of add on it. Babiš being like Trump. A lot of my friends say it when I kind of try to describe Babiš, and for some reason, I was for quite a while kind of not very happy about this description, because I think it's maybe also a reaction of the brain which doesn't want to be confronted with it as this being a possibility. But of course, I mean, he's an oligarch, he's a billionaire, he's the second richest person in the country. He owns this major agricultural business, which he has also built up with some pretty nasty techniques towards his concurrents. So you can also imagine how he is actually running the country. As said, he has this major, he owns this major media. It's a huge conflict of interests. And and he was reacting very hysterically to the allegations which were actually which were being presented against him in the media, by saying it is all a fabricated campaign against him, etc., etc. We also know that it's not only like a theoretical conflict of interests. We know that he is making use of all these connections and of all this kind of power accumulation. So, for example, last year there was some wiretapes which were leaked of Babiš basically instructing journalists on exactly at what time, what kind of dirt to let out on in the media on which party. So giving very clear instructions, for example, yes, make an article on this before the Social Democrats Congress, etc. So there was a clear and very strong influence which he was not able to explain, where he claimed that the wiretaps are fake, and again reacting actually in a what I would describe a very hysterical way. And with regard to the conflict of interest with regard to his business, so there is a strong suspicion that it's a fact that the value of his property has more than doubled since he has been in the power for 4 years now, and you can have a strong suspicion already on that basis that him being in power kind of enables his businesses to kind of circumvent certain laws. But at the same time, there are now these allegations that he was misusing certain subsidies, and the police was looking into that before the election, and actually the police needed to ask the parliament to strip him of his parliamentary immunity, which interestingly he now regained by being re-elected. So now we will need to have a vote again on whether the police can actually continue this investigation. So that's maybe another interesting element. And I think it's also very interesting to read how do people then, knowing all these allegations, and that's only maybe the tipping point or the little part, and then there is a big iceberg which we don't see. And it's very interesting to kind of, when you try to understand why do still people keep voting for him. And of course, one part of it is that he has really good PR strategist. There was a very funny picture, kind of, which was kind of symbolical of this relationship towards his main PR strategist. So right after the election, there was the picture of Babiš basically hugging this campaign or this PR manager and kissing him, and that was all over the media. And I think that's really kind of also the symbol of how an important role the good media presentation plays for him. But then I was also reading like all kinds of various justifications for voting for Babiš, which I kind of find difficult to understand, and I'm still kind of trying to process them. But I think at some point there was also the impression that so many other media except for his media are against him. Something wrong, and some people felt kind of a bit sorry for him. Yes, and Vojta is now showing you the picture. So on, I guess on the way we see it, it was on the right side where I look at it, it's Andrej Babiš, and on the left side you see Marek Prchal, who is the chief campaign strategist. Yeah, I get now again a bit lost. So I would say that this comparison with Trump is accurate, and it's actually very terrifying. It's like I'm pretty much terrified, and it's interesting. I'm kind of wondering how long will they be able to play this role of an anti-establishment party, and that's the question, because now I think they're clearly moving beyond a point where they can play anti-establishment. Yeah.
Okay, I would actually have a follow-up question.
Can I again add something, please? Just like let's think about it. Maybe. Actually, Babiš himself, he said he's more like Berlusconi from Italy than Trump. And I think what's different from Babiš and Trump, and which makes Babiš unique, like basically everywhere. You know, we have those leaders who are wealthy businessmen and they're populists and stuff. But what makes him different from Trump is that is that he owns part of media. So he's not that not as much criticized as Trump in media in the States. He's not as much criticized here. So, which is one point. The other point is that I think in the States, like how wealthy Trump is, it doesn't help him that much, the wealth itself. But in Czech case, Babiš is super wealthy, and the money can win him the seat. And the third thing is also that now Babiš, he's the leader, he's the boss of the party or the movement, and the movement is loyal to him, really loyal. So he can do basically whatever he wants. On the other hand, I think Trump still has to needs some allies, you know, in the Republican Party or in Congress and stuff. So I think these are the main differences. But on the other hand, yeah, he acts like the same way, really similar way, really hysterically. And he owns some, or he's a media guy. He owns some media. He's populist and anti-establishment, but these are accurate. But on the other hand, there are also differences, and I think like the differences I just said are also differences between like him and other leaders who are like him in Europe, for example.
Okay. Yeah. Following up on this whole likeness to Trump. Basically, the movement that he led, from which the party grew out, was, if I remember correctly, called Dissatisfied Citizens, and it was a movement against corruption. But then he went into government with the Social Democrats, which he criticized. So that would be one of my questions, is that did that affect his public image? And the second question would be, he said that he's going to run the country as a business, and what would that mean for the future of the Czech Republic? Vojta or Anna? Vojta, you weren't speaking, so I'll give the word to you.
Yeah, they were starting in 2011 as association of those citizens, and he could get in quite a lot professionals and well-educated people, and also a lot of people who just see that who could see that they can get some good positions and get the money. But then he was, I think, second in the elections in 2013, and the situation where that he could go to the government or there won't be any government, because the Social Democrats didn't want to go with right-wing parties, and because he doesn't have an ideology, he could go to a government with Social Democrats. And during those 4 years, I think we had one of the best governments in our history, from the point of view what they did for the people and the country. And it was mainly Social Democrats ministers who did this policies and did these topics. But because he has this media and good PR team, he was presenting himself as the one who did this policies, and still that he is in the government but still anti-government. It's a little bit crazy story, but he could present himself as anti-government person and movement, but still to be in the government. And it also created a lot of governmental crisis during those 4 years, which the last one, or the one of the last ones, led to that he had to leave the position of Minister of Finance, and it was half a year ago. Also, the Czech President Zeman played his role during this, where we could see that he cooperates somehow, Zeman, with Babiš, and then he left the position of Minister of Finance. The government finished their 4 years, and now we have the situation after the election. Can anyone add anything?
Yeah, there was a statement by you. Sorry, Anna. There was a statement which said that the Social Democrats were doing one of the best policies of the last 27 years, and I was really wondering if you two agree with that.
Yeah, I kind of agree with that. It's not what I wanted to talk about, but yeah, I basically agree. It was like one of the best government, like, which is kind of bizarre, but because Andrej Babiš was there, but it wasn't really like what he did, but what Social Democrats did. But I wanted to add on this that he also, yeah, he would say like, okay, I did this, not the Social Democrat. So in his communication or in the PR strategy, he said that, and he also blamed the others when something didn't like happen or when something went wrong. So he's like, oh no, it's not me, you know. And as I said, like in the beginning, it's his good like storytelling. It's his story. I'm the successful businessman. I came here to fix it, and I try, but they don't let me, you know. So this is the way how he talked, and that's why it didn't really hurt him, but it hurt like Social Democrats so much, or one of the reasons. But also it's interesting. We talk about the possible coalitions later, or should I talk about it now a bit?
Well, I saw it as the next point, but if you
Okay.
want to, or
No, it's fine. It's fine. Just like we will talk about it. It's fine. So that's it.
cool. Susanna, do you agree with what has been said, or do you want to add anything?
Yeah, I wanted to actually add one point on this anti-corruption thing and how that actually happened, because I think it's quite an interesting story, how actually basically Babiš could also capitalize on this anti-corruption buzz. So because like in the past, corruption was quite a big issue in the Czech Republic and kind of a big issue of concern for a lot of people for very legitimate reasons. And I think he could kind of capitalize on this buzz or this need for people to have finally some kind of government who will not be corrupt. And at that time in 2013, there was also a coalition of NGOs, which was called Reconstruction of the State, and they were having a campaign where they were advocating for 9 specific anti-corruption laws. And he basically pretty much, well, I think now looking back, you could partly say that he misused their campaign, because he basically said, oh yeah, I will kind of subscribe to this program and I will make these 9 laws pass. And he could kind of capitalize on this buzz around corruption and on this campaign, which was actually made by the NGOs. And a lot of people were then kind of angry about these NGOs and were saying, well, basically, you kind of caused Babiš in the end. You kind of are the source of this huge conflict of interest which we're now having, which I think is kind of questionable. But still, it's interesting how basically how he managed to capitalize on something, on some kind of sentiment in the past. And again, maybe also just to add, sorry, and managed to capitalize on work of others, as he was doing now with the Social Democrats. So he capitalized on the work of the NGOs. In this time, he capitalized on the work of the Social Democrats, and he keeps, as others said, he keeps accusing others for not being able to push for more, basically.
Yeah, so my follow-up question to that is that according to Google, his wealth equals 3.4 billion euros, which makes him richer than the richest Hungarian, and that he said that he's going to run the country like a business. So what does that spell out for the future of the Czech Republic? What do you think? Vojta.
It's not looking well, because as the people who follow the FYG group on Telegram, I was sending their stories from written by Sasha Ulova, left-wing journalist who were for half a year working in low-paid jobs, and one of the jobs were in Czech chicken industry, which is one of the Babiš companies, and the working conditions there were really, really bad. So we could see that he would pay well for his fellows, and the rest will be in really bad conditions. That's all from me.
Okay, Anna, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, I was actually thinking, because there is this really interesting book, which is a work of two journalists who were like investigating Babiš's business in Czech Republic, and there are a couple of really interesting stories. Now we can see how he treats other people while doing business, what he does while doing business, and then like when reading this or realizing this, we can kind of imagine how he could do it with the state. So basically, what he always does is that he lies a bit, and he tells you that yeah, I will do business together. I will give you the best prices. I will give you this and this and this, and makes actually really personal relationship with you. And then, like in the end, you start being you start needing him more, because he tells you like, oh well, if you just give me what was it? I think it was the chickens as well. There's this one story. If you will give all this what you have to me, I will give you the best prices. But he makes these promises, but in the end, he doesn't he doesn't give you what he promised to you, and in the end, you actually you're bankrupt or something like that, and he helps you out by buying your company. Basically, that's what he did many times. So he basically lies and makes a really personal relationship with you, and then he says, "Oh, I'm sorry, I just like this year wasn't really good, but I can pay you as much as I promised, but." Well, you can take these chickens. I don't like need them if you want to give me them for this price. So you basically need him, and in the end, he destroys you completely. So that's what he does with people, and I think we can also see it in the politics he does, or he how he presents himself in public. I think it's like a good example.
Yeah, okay. I will ask Susanna if she has anything to add, but also just to point out here that yeah, he wants to run the country as a business. His party is part of ALDE, the alliance of liberals and Democrats in the European Parliament, and I think he even describes the party as liberal. But maybe you can share some other thoughts on that.
Well, maybe just to add on what Anna said. They're also in this book, and there is also a movie about it, a documentary movie. There are allegations that also his employees have spread Roundup on the field of his concurrents. So you can kind of imagine how he treats his opponents. What's maybe also interesting is that the Greens wanted to screen this movie publicly, which was forbidden by the Czech TV because they considered it a political campaign, and they said it's like the movie cannot be. Although the party had bought the rights, or kind of I think agreed with the authors that they had the permission to screen it, they couldn't do it because it was considered a campaign. Anyways, what will it mean maybe also in more practical terms? And I think like I don't want this whole talk to be about Babiš, obviously, but I think it is a big threat also for democracy and for the system of checks and balances, because I think this approach of him that of running the state as a company also means that he is the boss, right? So, and I think he really has not really internalized what is democracy about, and what are the checks and balances about, and why are they good for. And you can also see it in the party, where he is basically the boss in the party, and the people in the party stay loyal to him, either, well, maybe also because they fear him. I don't know. I don't want to also speculate on that, but like there is not much internal party democracy. It's basically what he says that's going to happen, that happens. And And I think what will happen, what we'll see in practice, and what we have seen in practice and before, is that he will be adopting this kind of rather managerial approach to things, which is kind of devoid of any big ideology, right? So things are problems and they need to be solved. So the way people are problems and the problem needs to be solved. Likewise, refugees are a problem and they need to be solved. And I can imagine that this will significantly shrink. It will pretty much depend on who will be his coalition partner. But I think that this will shrink the space for civil society, and it will shrink the space also for some progressive politics in the end.
Okay, well, but for that he would. Oh yeah, Wojta.
You asked what is this policies or ideology? I'm afraid that there is not much ideology behind, and although he is in the liberal group in parliament, in European Parliament, I think he is more right wing, and if we can come up with this idea because he's big capitalist, and I don't know many big capitalists who are left wing and who would do policies who will help the society and the low income people. I think he was increasing. This government was increasing the minimum wage, but it is something which goes against his companies because now he has to pay bigger wages, and I'm afraid that this will stop because he's going to be the major voice in the government.
Okay, there's an interesting question coming up in YouTube at the moment, which is coming from actually another EC member of FIG from Peja. What do you think about the election results of the Pirate Party? Anyone can start.
Okay, then I would start, if that's okay. Well, I mean, it's good for them, right? So there, I think it's first of all, it's a big surprise. There were predictions that they will get in, and it looked like it will be around 6%, what they will get. But I think at some point they were really able to capitalize also on this buzz and on this kind of momentum and they were really able to work with this and get a lot of people kind of excited. Yeah, and I said it's good for them, and I think it's like a lot of people put now a lot of hope in them, it seems. And now the question is, will they have the resources, the personal resources, especially to kind of manage? I think it will be interesting to observe. Yeah, it will be interesting to observe. I think they did some good stuff. For example, in Prague, they focus a lot, as I said already in the beginning, they focus a lot on transparency and on fight against corruption, and I think they're quite good at this. They also focus a lot on digitalization, etc. So, but obviously these topics are again quite unideological, and I think that's how they will also trying to present it. So, for example, one of their campaign motto was ecology without ideology. So basically trying to say, which kind of, I think that's also they were trying to distinguish themselves from the Greens in this sense. And I think that's partly, yeah, the question, or I don't want to call it the problem, but let's call it the question. So I think with pirates in the parliament, I think some good people did enter the parliament, and I have the trust that they will try to do a very good job. And I also have the trust that they will not be stealing money from the state, to put it very easily. So this means that there is a likelihood that that the cake which which is there to be shared will get bigger, but we still don't know how the cake will be, who will be eating the cake, right? So the cake will probably get bigger, but we don't know who will be eating it, or what parts of the society will get how big part of the cake. And I think that's kind of for me always the question mark with the pirates. So what's the bigger ideology behind this transparency ideology?
Okay, well, following up on that to Anna and Vojta, basically they are now the biggest not right of center party, opposition party in the parliament. So what do you think? Can they act as an effective counterbalance to what the Babiš government might bring?
Okay, I think I can I can say something now. They might. I think like we all should be really lucky that they are actually there and they got like almost 11%, because when we see like who else got there, it's like this is actually pretty good. And as Zuzana said, they did some good stuff, for example in Prague. But yeah, for me, like pirates, they could be in some cases, in some topics maybe, but for me they're really like unpredictable, because as Zuzana has already mentioned, there is no ideology behind something. They basically talk about digitalization, transparency, and legalization of weed, and these are their topics, and these are like, for me, these are not the biggest topics we actually face today. And like if you look at that program, you sometimes don't really know what would they do in those cases. If they how do they treat migration? How would they treat like the shared economies like Airbnb or Uber and etc. Like in the program, you don't really know. They just like say something really vague, and then you're like, okay, are you gonna like ban it, or are you gonna support it, or what are you gonna do with it? So I also have this trust that this won't really happen. That they will do just good stuff, hopefully, but. That's why I like wouldn't vote for them, like if there was no Green Party, because they are really like unpredictable, and I hope they will be good counterbalance, but I don't think we can say it like for sure right now.
Okay, Vojta, do you have anything to add to the pirates?
I think their campaign was really good. It was done by one Facebook public figure who is working for marketing since 90s. And I read an article with him today, and from my point of view, their campaign was populist, and those ecology without ideology, it was something which was really troubling me, and I was I was pissed off, but it worked on people, and also it worked. The bus, they let us on them that we will get them to the jail, and all these populist claims. They were among people. They were among people, and they got into their campaign, and then they got the votes. I'm also afraid that we can't be really sure what to expect from them, and as they present their program, I think it's a little bit on the right than on the center. Some, but it's hard to say. I think they are against, for example, progressive tax progression and stuff like this. But also, they come up with ideas through internal elections in their party, so you never know what can happen. And I think their party, in their party, there are some left-wing people and also some right-wing people, and you never know which is going to be majority on some topics.
Okay, now let's talk a bit about the Greens. So basically, the Green Party ended with 1.46% in the polls. Do you think that the Pirates were able to basically take away the protest voters, which would have otherwise went to the Green Party, just because they saw them as more likely to get into Parliament? Anna, I can see that you're nodding your head.
Yeah, okay, I can start. Well, basically, yes. That's what I actually said before the elections. If we don't get there, it's probably gonna be because of the Pirates, because they took our voters. And like in the campaign or around me, people around me, I heard a lot that they said like, I'm sorry, I can't vote for the Greens, or I won't vote for the Greens because I will vote for the Pirates because they have a chance to get there. Because we already knew that they will get there. They will they had more than 5%, and a lot of people like in these elections, because these elections were presented and they actually were like really a big deal, you know, and it was like a mobilization against Babiš. Like basically everywhere, like in our green circles, green bubble, and maybe more like liberal circles, and so the people in the end voted for Pirates. So there is a big opposition to Babiš, and also they don't really have that big experience with them, and they think that okay, now they have time, they have like 4 years to show themselves what they can actually do, because a lot of people think like, okay, the other parties, they've already been there, they've already been to the parliament, and we know what they can do, so let's have this new fresh blood there. So I think yeah, we lost a lot of voters who voted for Pirates, but also for like this right-wing conservative party, Top 09, for the same reason usually.
Okay, Susanna, do you want to add something? Why did the Greens get it so rough during the election?
Yeah, I mean that's a big question, and I mean, so what we see is that a lot of people are coming now with different theories and well-meant advices on what the Greens should do or shouldn't do, and the advices are contradictory, and sometimes they, I don't know, it's a big mess, sort of, you know, and everyone has their own theory on why the Greens didn't manage. And of course, like there are several elements to that. And I guess like you could kind of distinguish, and I think it's maybe important to also distinguish between like these external elements and which we couldn't influence, and that's the factor Pirate Party, and also the factor that okay, the others will get in. That basically the left as such has lost so badly in this election. Yeah. So there were a lot of external factors which we probably couldn't influence, such as the general political climate at this moment, which is not very favorable to the left, especially also in like that's true for all Europe. But then there were obviously some internal factors which maybe we could have influenced. I mean, Anna and Vojta already mentioned these problems, which are sort of, let's say, managerial problems, where there were some issues with like picking the right manager, and then there were some, well, dissatisfaction with the campaign manager, etc., etc. Obviously, now there is also, well, I think, so there is also now a lot of criticism towards the now ex-party leader who stepped down after the elections, who is being criticized for kind of pushing the party too much to the left. And I think which it's, in my perspective, still open to discussion whether this shift to the left actually harmed the party. I mean, it's so that's one opinion which we hear is that was the single most harmful factor, because that we have chased away from us the liberal urban voters who kind of felt we are now these totally left-wing freaks and we have gone mad. At the same time, I think you can also discuss, because I genuinely think that the program this year was very good, and I think there would have been an opportunity to actually get socially disadvantaged classes maybe, or socially disadvantaged voters interested in this program, and the program was meant for them, but for some reason we were not able to speak to them. And I think that might be also a question of we didn't have actually enough time for make this rebranding and this shift towards a more left-wing party really genuine, and so people didn't really maybe kind of perceive it as authentic. About voting for us, and they never thought about us as being the left-wing alternative, so we don't come to their mind when they are choosing who to vote for. And I think in this regard it's also significant to see that the Social Democrats, they have lost, among others, so there are different, I have looked also at statistics of where did the votes go, and part of their voters went to ANO, but also there is 300,000 voters who voted for Social Democrats in 2013 and decided not to vote anyone this time. And I think those are the voters which we could have actually won with our program, but somehow it didn't happen. And I mean that can be also a question of communications, but to main and a question of branding, and then we can discuss what's the problem with the brand, with the green brand. And I think there might be some serious problems from the past which keep dragging with us, and it's very hard to kind of present ourselves as something fresh and new, and to be genuine with it, kind of authentic, and to convince people and to get people excited about the party and to get people feel kind of that this is it. That, like, the brand at this moment is not kind of creating this feeling for, like, we can discuss what the reasons are. There might be different reasons to that. But what I wanted to say as what I think is actually a problem, or what I see as one of the factors why also this election failed. And I think I would say that there was also a problem with tensions within the party, which are okay as such. And I think it's okay, it's healthy for a party to have different opinions. And it would be actually unhealthy not to have it, but the tensions were dealt with in a very unstructured and unhealthy way, let's say. And I think that also kind of created some conflicts which were dragging on for a while, and which people were not able to overcome. And I think it took very long for certain people to get motivated and to get excited about the campaign and to really start campaigning. And some people also didn't even feel like taking part in the campaign at all. So I think there was some sort of a lack of unity within the party, and I think the internal dimension should be a point of reflection, so for the future, from my perspective.
Okay, Voit, I would like to hear your opinion about this as well. Do you think that the past actions have stained the brand of the Green Party? And do you think that people saw it as rather part of the establishment than an anti-establishment party because of taking part in the government before?
Yes, for a lot of people, or we could, when I was campaigning on the streets, some sort of people or part of people are saying, "Green, I can vote for Greens because of what they did in the past," and it's more than 10 years ago. We don't have those people in the party anymore, but it's still among the people. So this is one of the problems. one of the biggest problems of the campaign was the manager problems, and that our campaign started quite late. The main campaign was only for like two months before the elections, and it's too short time to persuade people, and they were already decided, and they were not watching us. The Another problem is that recently we were known as the pro-refugee party, and I think, and it's for me one of the reasons why I'm in Greens, because the Greens were the only party who were pro-refugee in this anti-refugee hysteria, and it harmed us really bad. And also during our General Assembly during January, uh, some paper on gender balance, how to how to speak gender balance. It got out, and some right-wing newspapers, they were making fun of us, and a lot of people, and also because of squad Clinica, there are some people from the Greens also fight for the squad. So during the last 2 years, there were so many topics. This migration crisis, gender, and squatting. Those three topics, they were strong for us, but for the major society, they were something which politicians or which is wrong for the society, and we were the opposite for the society or the majority of the society. And if someone could forgive us, for example, our position on migration, they couldn't forgive us the position on squatting. And uh, when this whole sums up, we lost our position in society because they think those are our major topics, even though our major topics is still the protecting the nature, and also thankfully now some social housing or uh, left-wing policies like uh, increasing the minimum wage, which we fight hard in the party to get those things in our program. And now we hear the voices that we should not focus on this, and that it harms us really bad because we are seen as neo-Marxists from the right wingers. But uh, I I would also disagree a little bit that the left lost a lot. I think like the democratic left lost a lot. The Social Democrats, they have, I don't know, 7 or 8%. But for example, the left-wing policies in SPD, they had anti-migration topics, but their program, I don't know if their voters read it. Uh, they have there a lot of hard left-wing policies. It's something like NSDAP. They have their, we were against sending capital out of our borders. We will lower tax on beer, and another left-wing policies. I think also something about building houses. And so I think when people come up, sum it up that okay, I will vote for the ones who are going to build a house for me and also don't give it to migrant. Then that's the situation here.
Okay, so Anna already spoke about this, but let's talk a bit about coalition, because Babiš alone won't be able to make a government. Anna only received around 30% of the vote. And the second comers, the conservatives, said that they won't go into government with Babiš, but they will stay in opposition. And just this day, I read that Zeman already gave the position or the permission for Babiš to start building a government, but they won't call the parliament together for 30 days. So basically, they will go until the very end of the deadline to call the parliament because they really want to figure out what to do now, who will be in government. So what do you think? Will they go together with Tomio Okamura and his really weird and xenophobic party? Anna.
I actually like wrote down some notes on what like the others were saying before, but I don't know if we won't get to the like the future of Greens or what the Greens should do better on the campaign again, I suppose, or will we? Maybe then I can mention it, or
yeah, we will. The future is the third.
So I'll mention some of the things, like, or I will react later then. And okay, the thing with the coalition, it's yeah, this is gonna be pretty hard. Like the best scenario would be like if the government was the same as it was last 4 years, that the ANO Social Democrats and Christian Democrats, and they would actually do this, but who knows, it won't probably happen. But with Okamura and Babiš, or the problem with Babiš is that basically no one wants to make a coalition with him, because most of the parties in their campaigns, or at least a couple of weeks before the elections, they stated like, no, we won't do this. We wouldn't create a coalition with Babiš, and the campaigns were also like anti-Babiš kind of way sometimes, and which is really funny, I think, because if you look at the policy or the campaign of SPD and Tomio Okamura, he criticized Babiš a lot. But now in this case, I think Okamura would actually create a coalition with him. But but now, like Babiš doesn't want a coalition with him, right? Because no one wants to create a coalition with far right. So this is going to be really fun. The worst scenario would be probably SPD at the far right, ANO with the kind of silent support or the support of communists. So yeah, it's hard to tell right now. We will see.
Okay, Zuzana, what do you think? Is it possible that a Tokyo-born Japanese person and a Slovakian will lead the Czech Republic together?
Well, you never know in the East. Yeah. Anyways, I think we shouldn't be, criticizing. Like we shouldn't be criticizing Tomio Okamura for being Japanese and being racist. We should be criticizing him for being racist. I think that's the main point. But I actually do not think this will be the case. But I don't know, because like as Anna mentioned, like the doors are closed on so many sides, and so many kind of coalitions are basically unthinkable for one reason or the other, because one of the possible partners or the other of the possible partners have said that they will never go into this coalition. In any case, well, the president will nominate Babiš to kind of start the talks next week, and I think then we will see a bit. For now, I think it's rather unpredictable. The question is also what would happen if we would have another, if this would lead to like a total crisis, and then we would have another election. And it's quite, I think, this would probably be for example, the scenario which also a lot of people in Germany and also among the German Greens are afraid of, that might actually make the far right and Babiš profit even more. But for now, I think it's quite like I don't see what are the possible options. I see what are, for example, not the possible options. Like from many sides, basically the party leaders saying like either before the elections or now actually repeating it that they will not go into a coalition with Babiš, either with Babiš or with SPD. So yeah.
Vojta, do you think that snap election is possible, or with the silent support of the Communist Party, they will be managed to govern?
I would say similar things what girls just said, because no one knows what's going to happen. Uh, as everyone said, no, we are not going to into the government. Only the Social Democrats said, yeah, we don't know. But I think it would meant the death of the party if they would go with Andrej Babiš to the government, because before they had the leading role in the government, and now they would be just I don't know, two ministers or three, and the rest would be Ano and Andrej Babiš. So I think the possibility is somehow that Andrej Babiš will govern only with his party, with silent support of maybe the Communist Party, but I'm not sure. I'm also afraid about the new elections, what could happen, because it can uh, give his story the opportunity to say his story again. The traditional parties didn't let us do the work. I need to get more votes to lead the government, to lead the nation or the state. So he could win more votes than now. And I don't know how the electorate of the not anti-system parties, or how they would react if they would vote again for the same party, or the votes would move somewhere else. But I'm afraid that the 1.5 million of votes for Andrej Babiš would stay there and get even more than this. He could get even more than this. So we will see if the Social Democrats want to destroy the Social Democrats on the political map of Czech Republic. They could do it, but I'm not sure if they would.
Okay, so let's take a quick look at the future. Sorry, Anna, I will come back to you for the future of the Green Party, but I'm turning to Susanna now. As representing FIG here, I've seen a post by one of my friends, which was quite worrying, I would say. It just said four names, basically: Szydło, Fico, Orban, and Babiš. So what do you think that this means for the future of the European Union, and what does it mean for the Greens in Europe? And will the V4, the Visegrad 4 Corporation, actually get bigger or better, or will just spell out basically the incarnation of a two-speed Europe? What do you think?
I think there is actually, I would say there is a risk that, that this cooperation, which is quite harmful to us, will get better among the V4 countries. And I think in this sense, like Czech Republic kind of repositioned itself on the political map as definitely belonging more to the V4 countries, and more to the V4 countries, let's say. Whereas maybe, in contrast to maybe some ambitions which are sometimes there in the air to kind of belong more to the West. And I think this will encourage and empower various similar populist movements in the region. And I think that it might, but maybe you're also a better expert on this, Greg, I think it might also have an impact potentially on the Hungarian elections next year. But I definitely do think that it will have an impact in the sense of bringing the V4 closer together, and then the V4 acting as a much more kind of unified actor within the EU, and that's and causing kind of much more troubles, for example, when it comes to migration, etc., where the position was not so unified, and we could see certain kind of ruptures between between, let's say, for example, Hungary, Poland, and on one hand, and Czech Republic on the other. But it's also very interesting. I was just talking to a friend today that like for I don't know, a year or two, you could think like, okay, the V4 is kind of like the far right is on the rise, but the Czech Republic is still kind of like remaining quite a stable democracy, etc., etc. And now we're kind of seeing that the Czech Republic is kind of joining the other V4 countries, and it's becoming a unified bloc again. And I have doubts that we're still kind of the stable ones and the most democratic ones, let's say.
Okay, Anna, so you already started talking about the future of the Green Party. So how will the phoenix rise from its ashes?
Oh, well, yeah, I just like wanted to react on what we were discussing before, like about the campaign and the switch to the left, and if it's like if it was good or not. And I kind of feel like a lot of people tend to take just, some of the reasons why we didn't succeed this time, which are which they can kind of use on which side they are on. If you're like from the right-wing camp of the Green Party or a left-wing camp, like these people who are like on different sides, they usually use like those different reasons why, and they don't talk about the others. They usually just like the right-wing center camp is basically saying, yeah, the reason is our leader, and then the left-wing camp says, no, we are not radical enough, And with the radicality or like switching to the left, I think like just to say, like, our campaign in last months was not radical at all. It was super conservative. It was like, and after the results, actually, our former leader said that it was actually boring even for him, the campaign. And I just remember when I was campaigning, I was like, oh yeah, this is such a good campaign. It's like we can get to a lot of people with this. That's actually pretty good. But now, as I see it, like, it's kind of true. This campaign was like I don't know, like an advertisement for an insurance company. So yeah, it was just like a point to that. And like, what's the future? Well, I think the shift to the left was right, for sure, and we shouldn't abandon that. But it will be really hard for the Greens now, like we will totally get back to the center for sure. Now it doesn't really matter if it's good or bad for us, but we will, because like the people who are were like against our former leader and who are like in the camp, more like a right-wing camp, they will use this, or they are actually using it now. Like, they started the day when we knew the results, and they use it as like the reason. Okay, you see, this didn't work out, so we have to go back to our voters, and we will have to change the leader. But the question also is, who is this gonna be? Because we as Greens, we need really strong personality, really strong character, who Matěj, the former leader, actually was. And now, but he won't be re-elected. And if we don't find anyone like really strong leader as he was, and who was really seen in the media, well, I don't know what's gonna happen with that. I think we really need this, and we also need to talk more about like the topics we focus on, because as Vojta mentioned, or it was mentioned here, like some like minor topics like squatting or immigration, we didn't talk about these things because they were not like the big topics for it, because for us, big topics are the social and affordable housing, or shutting down coal mines and stuff. Maybe we didn't really like follow the line of like what's really happening in the society, and we actually had a huge range of topics. So we will have to focus on that, I think, and to focus more on what the society actually like wants to hear. If I like put it really roughly, or not what wants to hear, but the topics like they are important for them. And the question is if we rise or not. And I think this is a really important point, and I don't think it was mentioned here, is that we didn't get the fundings from the state, because you need 1.5%. So you get the funding from the state. So now we don't have money, which is the biggest problem. So actually the biggest problem now is the finances. So now we have to find money so we could actually function somehow. And then we can like talk about like, if to go back to center, if the shift to the left was right, or if this and this and this, and there are like many reasons people use, and we just I guess need time to talk about it. But yeah, I think that's it from my side for now.
Okay, Vojta, do you agree that you need kind of a charismatic personality to lead the party in order to come back?
Yes, I think so, a little bit, because someone wrote it that the charismatic leader, and it can be man or woman, it's something which people listen to during days in politics. We can see it in that Jeremy Corbyn had created strong movement, Bernie Sanders created strong movement, or from the right side, the Kurds in Austria also created strong movement, and the people voted for him, and they didn't care much else about the party. So I think, yeah, also in the Czech Republic, Andrej Babiš is a strong leader. Ivan Bartoš from the Pirates is strong leader. And those parties did quite well. But I'm afraid that in Greens, we don't have that kind of person right now, except the Matej, the former spokesperson or chairman, and I think he would like to rest for a while because he was getting so much hate from the inside of the party, from the right wingers, and um, it was really hard for him, and so I think he will take some rest now from the Greens and from the fighting inside of the party. We are going to have General Assembly in January, and there will be the party deciding if the movement to the left was enough, or we should move more to the left, or we should get back to the center, or if we should focus only on nature and Václav Havel. And I'm afraid that we will move from our left policies back to only nature and Václav Havel and admiring NATO. And we will see after the January. So far, after the elections, I think more than 200 people sent an application for entering the party. As you can see, Zuzka also did also, and I think those people are the supporters of the left wing Greens. Are the people who see the green politics as ecological and social justice, and not only ecological. And I hope that thanks to those people, we could still stay on this also left-wing policy line.
Okay, Zuzka, did you join the party because you're waiting for the next Jacinda Ardern or Jesse Cleaver? And would you like to see a shift towards the left?
Yeah, I think the good question is actually why did I join now and why didn't I join earlier, right? This is something which I was obviously kind of thinking of a lot already before, but one thing which was always kind of preventing me from doing is was that I felt like there's really sometimes a very toxic environment on how people go about problems, and I still do think that this is part of the reasons why people go about conflicts, and I think that's also part of the reasons why the campaign was not successful. And so that was the reason why I was also questioning for very long, like, do I want to kind of such an environment? But in the end, like seeing the results, I'm really afraid that if people don't join, like the Greens will kind of start evaporating from the map, and that would be for me like absolutely tragic to see, and it would like this is something which definitely needs to be prevented. Left-wing, right-wing division. I think there will be still a lot of discussion about this within the party. Like what did this rebranding actually do? I mean, like as was already mentioned, some people are now saying, well, this is clearly this result is clearly a sign that there was no demand for left-wing green politics. I think that the other possible way to look at it is to say, well, the rebranding was not finalized. Like we didn't have actually time to convince really the voters that we are authentic and that this shift is authentic and that they can vote for us. And what's maybe also interesting is that which is an information which I don't have totally verified, but it seems that so we have this kind of voter preferences calculator where you can kind of say what your political positions are, and then you see like with which parties you're overlapping. And according to some information which I do not have verified, but some people from the party office were putting on Facebook during the weekend that apparently 400,000 people got green as one of among their first preferences when they were trying out this voter preferences calculator, which is a really high number. And then the question is, what's the problem? Why don't they still feel like they should vote for something where they have the biggest overlap? And I think there might be really some kind of a problem with the brand and some kind of a problem with like emotional disconnect with the brand, that the brand does not create this kind of yay, like this is it and I'm going to now vote and I'll be totally happy when voting and I'll even do a selfie when voting. So that's not the emotion the brand is creating at this moment, and the question is why. Yeah, and about the leaders, I think it's also very like for me, but that's again my point of view, and as said, like I also don't see totally into all the kind of internal dimensions, but I think it's also important to kind of really discuss how people are treating each other and what kind of environment is being created within a group when the group aims at somehow influencing the society, basically. And what kind of society do you want? Are you creating the society internally or not? But there is definitely a space for the Greens, as said, and I think we kind of we will now maybe for a while need to keep a bit lower profile, and will need to kind of keep reestablishing itself. And I do think that the young Greens could actually play a very, very important role in this, in bringing a totally new generation of activists into politics at some point. And I also do think that for this reason, it might be also interesting to kind of try to adopt a bit more approaches of so to adopt less formalized approaches and to go more towards something like movement building, which I think would be interesting. And I don't have this thought finalized yet, but I think what might be interesting would be also to look in some of the strategies what the anti-alcohol movement is using, because climate change was not an issue in the Czech Republic in the past, and suddenly for the last year or two, it suddenly became again among certain young groups. And we had this climate camp, and I think it might be very interesting to look at the strategies what this movement, which is called Limit is Meme, We Are the Limits, is using. And maybe Anna can also say a bit more about this because she was involved in that.
Okay, Anna, do you want to talk a bit about the climate camp?
Oh well, yeah, I can, but now I didn't really like think about like this connection. I was, Susan has already mentioned it, and I was thinking about it that what we actually created in Limit is Meme in that group after the climate camp. We created a group which is called Pohojinda in Czech, which might be translated like I didn't like no stress or something. Yeah, no stress group, because how we work is like we are non-hierarchical and we work in the different groups which focus on different things like communication or this non-stress group, and we discuss how the what are the problems between certain people, why some people leave the movement, why people don't like this person, what happened between them, or we create like a space where everyone like feels good and treats other people nicely. And we also have an agenda like more like educational stuff, or more like having meetings, because we mostly meet just on plenaries or meetings and stuff, but we don't actually spend time together. I don't know, go running and stuff. So I think, like Susanna's already mentioned, like this might be really valuable thing, like to add like to the structure of the grades. But I think this will be super hard because it has so many people, and like I think a lot of people actually like to be rude to other people in that party, and they kind of enjoy it. But they're just like some of them. It's not the majority of people, just a couple of individuals. So I think that's it. Yeah. Also have one friend who actually joined the Green Party after Saturday as well, and he's from Limity, and he always wanted to be more, like objective. He always like voted Greens, and then he was supportive of Greens, but now he actually joined because he was also like really like fucked up because of the situation. And yeah, maybe that's it. I think that's what we should like do. And Susanna's already said that, to try to be nice to each other.
Okay, well, I've seen that we've already been streaming for 2 hours, but there's one last segment which I definitely want to cover, which is young people and young people's participation in the campaign and in the future of the Green Party. So Vojta, I would turn to you now as a young Green candidate. What was it like to represent your party during the national election, and was it? Did you feel any differences from other generations when it came to your participation in the elections?
Hmm. Different between generations. I don't know. I felt like, yeah, I should be there on the candidate list, and I was lucky and glad that they put me on a quite on the top. I was fifth on the candidate list, but I think our candidate list was quite young in whole. That leading woman was is 34 years old. Then second candidate is 31. So I don't see it as a huge difference. And also they are from Czech Greens, but uh, so I don't see there any difference. I can see the difference among the other parties that their candidate lists were much much more older than ours. Maybe the Pirates have young candidates as well. Uh, about the representation of young people after these elections, I feel that somehow everyone hates us, but I hope this feeling could slowly move away. That we don't have support among young people, but we'll see in the future. I'm just a little bit pessimistic right now after the election.
Okay, Anna, we've seen the picture on FIG's page of the Young Greens standing up with the big banner. So what was the Young Greens' contribution to the campaign? How did it go? And were there any good methods which you would like to share with the rest of the audience?
It was a bit complicated actually because I don't know if like everyone who watches this or will watch this knows like how does it work here like with the Czech Young Greens and the party, because we are not officially part of the party and we are autonomous organization, but we cooperate a lot. We have a memorandum on cooperation and stuff, and we are really like really connected. And well, but it was a bit hard to actually mobilize the people from the Young Greens to campaign because of some difficulties we have with the party, or some more like some topics that the party doesn't really like focus on that much, and we think they should. And like they were like this. The people didn't really want that much to campaign, but like in the end we came up with this small Young Greens campaign that we picked our candidates, the people from the Young Greens who were on the candidacy list, who were candidates, and we wanted to promote them more. So we like promote how the young people should join politics and should be elected because we need them and because it's our fucking future, right? And so we did flyers, and we distributed them during the campaign, and we also posted it on Facebook and gave some money to it, and the money came actually from the Green Party. So we could use this money, but for something we would do in cooperation with the party, and which would be more like following the communication strategy of the campaign. So it, like in the end, it wasn't really like radical or anything like our flyers or our small campaign, and yeah, that was the thing we did. Like we wanted to promote the young people on the candidates, and I think like what Vojta said, there are a lot of young people. Maybe in his region, yes, but in my region, for example, no. Like I was really the youngest one, and the second youngest person was like 38, you know. So it really depends on the region, but I think in general there were not that many like really young candidates. I don't know, less than 30, but yeah, that's like whatever.
Okay, and Susanna, I will turn to you again. There is a question on YouTube from Niels Rubelman. How could FIG have supported the Czech Young Greens?
Yeah. So thank you for this question. FIG is, of course, always very happy to support any sort of Young Green campaign, and we do that regularly. So it also really depends on what are the needs of the specific Young Green group. So in this case, we went with some support statements on Facebook, and which is something which we also do usually, but there is always opportunity to use Young Greens as a network, and I would really like to encourage also those young green groups who will be having elections in the future to really do not hesitate to reach out either to FIG, but also through our Telegram channel or through our Facebook group to kind of to reach out to each other and to ask for support, be it in terms of how do I manage Facebook properly, be it in terms of how do I reach out to the regions properly, etc., etc. Like, I mean, FIG is this kind of huge organism which has so much knowledge in it, and I think sometimes we forget about it and we don't reach out to it. So I think it's also very important that the Young Green Group is kind of clear about what their needs are, and that they kind of use the resources which are there. And I mean, if we can provide some support, then we obviously are always very happy to do it. And like social media is the most easy thing that we can do. Yeah, so any sort of other elections which are ahead of us, turn to us.
Okay, great. So yeah, we're nearing the end. I would ask the people who are watching us on YouTube if they have any questions, then do not hesitate to ask them, because we're going to end soon. And the last part would be basically about conclusions. So young people and the young people's contribution to the future of Green parties in Europe, or to the future of the Czech Young Greens, and to the future of the Czech Green Party. What does the future look like? What is the best solution? What is going to happen, and what do you want to happen? Anna, Vojta.
Okay, I can start. Well, this is a really hard question. I mean, there's also a question: what's the future of the Young Greens in general? And I think we actually didn't have time to have a meeting with our EC, and I think we will have to discuss this a lot, because we now feel some tensions as well within the Young Greens. What should we do? What should we focus on? Who are we? What are we? And this will take some time to find out, or like to discuss that, because there are like different like views on what's our future, who we are, etc. And well, what is the future of the Greens? I wish I knew. But yeah, for sure, like we've already mentioned it here, that it will be really hard, and we need to like stand up on our feet again and try to survive this, and try to be even more like unified or unite than ever, because we lost a lot. And maybe that's a question for the Czech Young Greens as well, like whether to get totally separated from the party or actually join the party. I think they are like those two options, because right now, or this is my point of view, because now it's I don't think it's this state of things is the best for either of us. Like, so we will see. And if you want to send us some money, which we need a lot, you can always find it on our website. There are actually a lot of people who already contributed and send us gifts, which is really nice.
Okay, Vojta, with the experience behind your back now, running on a campaign, being a candidate, what would your advice be to young Greens who are willing to run and who are willing to represent their party in national or any other elections?
Do it. It's fun. It's kind of stressful, and it's really good to have good friends in the campaign and on the candidate list who you could do campaign with. I did most of the campaign with Kuba Kutilek and Monika Horáková, which are awesome people who I really love, and I like to campaign with them. For the last week, I was waking up every day, 5:30 to start campaigning from 6 a.m. And it was really hard, but I enjoyed it, and that's the most important part, to enjoying it with good people. what about the future of the Young Greens? I hope that we will survive and that we could get some more attention in the public and some more people get involved, because our vision of future and of life is, from my point of view, really beautiful, and it should be more among the people, that this nice vision of life among people who love each other and don't hate each other and support themselves. I hope that it will spread somewhere in the society. About my thoughts right now, as I said before, I'm a little bit in pessimistic mood. I had some radical mood in my mind or thoughts, but I would rather not present them live on YouTube, and uh, hope that we can start functioning somehow in Young Greens again, because during the campaign we did so many things and didn't have time to do the regular things of functioning and stuff like this, because half of the EC was candidating and another ones were campaigning, and we didn't have time to meet and discuss other stuff except the campaign. Uh, I hope for the brighter future of green movement.
Okay, Susanna, do you have any inspirational words for young people willing to run and willing to express their ideas on a bigger level?
Yeah, I think it's very easy. Actually the answer to all the questions, like what's the future and how to kind of, yeah, like the motivating words, just keep calm and organize, and that's what we will do. We will invest a lot on community building, and we will also invest a lot in movement building, and we will step by step work towards building this broad base of we have these awesome young people. We have Vojta, and we have Anna, and we have you, and we have so many other young people all over Europe. And of course, the results will not come from one day to the other, but I think it's very important that we just know that FIG is there, and we are all there, and we can always support each other, and we will just do it. We will just keep organizing day by day, and we will reclaim and we will take back our future, because it is our fucking future. So just let's do it.
Okay. Okay, if none of you have any other concluding words, then I think that is the nice part to stop. Thank you for Anna, for Vojta, and for Susanna for being in this little talk tonight, and for bearing with us for 2 hours and 46 minutes. And yeah, let's work towards a better young green future. And let's meet at the next Green Late Night Talks, probably about Iceland, hopefully, which is going to have elections quite soon, and the Greens might get into government. So that's something to look forward to. So thank you all, and goodbye. Good night.
Thank you, Greg.
Bye.
Thank you all of you.
Thank you, moderator. Bye.